Ohio, and the rest of the planet. Welcome to another edition of Open. Here I go again. I'm on another radio station this morning. This is 360 Info Network on AM 1490 WERE. We have a great show lined up for you today. I have a guest who is doing wonderful things in this community, and she's in the field of holistic health, and we're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about a film that you may have seen recently called They Clone Tyrone. And we're going to talk about shadow work. You know, we know about light work, but we don't necessarily know about shadow work. So we're going to talk about that today. Also, want to let you know that this evening at Larchmere Arts, we're going to have a jam session. I've invited a few musician friends to stop by, and we're going to make some music. And you're welcome to stop by. It's 12726 Larchmere Boulevard, right there in the heart of the Larchmere Arts District. And on September 8th, we'll be doing open mic poetry, a feature to be announced very soon. So that's Friday after next. So you'll want to stay tuned and check out the Facebook page, and you'll get more details on that. Without any further ado, I would like to welcome to 360 Info Network my good friend, the Reverend Dr. Trenayce Talbert. We connected a couple years ago, and we've actually done a couple of shows together. And just miraculously, I got a call from her the other day, and I couldn't resist having her on the show today. So, welcome, Reverend Dr. Trenayce.
Well, thank you, Vince. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, and just want to let everybody know our broadcast partner, Hamtonio, is out in the field today. He may be joining us a little bit later, and when he does, we will definitely welcome him to the show. So, as I said, what prompted this conversation was a call of Dr. Talbert is not on Facebook a whole lot, definitely not as much as I am, but I reached out to her a couple months ago, and I think she finally saw that message. So that's the way the universe works. And we had a health summit here in Cleveland a few weeks ago. Dr. Milton Mills, Dr. Jessica Ruff, Dr. Baxter Montgomery, and a sister who is she's a registered nurse, and her name is Fury. Meryl Fury was a part of that, and it was just such profound medical information. I just want to continue the momentum that began as a result of their presence here in Cleveland. Dr. Talbert is here in Cleveland, so you are able to connect with her on a personal level and take advantage of the great things that she's able to do. So why don't we start by you just giving us an idea of what you are doing, the types of modalities that you're working in, and then we'll talk about some of the other things that you're doing.
Well, I use energy work to help people. So that means I use frequency medicine as well as my own healing from my hands. So people just need to know there's lots of ways to get healing, and they don't have to use the allopathic modalities. It's so many ways to do it naturally, and
Oh,
it works like magic.
okay. When you talk about allopathic, and we have been joined by Brother Hamtonio, when you talk about allopathic, tell the folks out there who are listening and watching what allopathic is and what the contrast between allopathic and natural medicine is.
Well, natural means that you're using some form of natural modality, whether it be herbal, water therapy, sun therapy, which is called heliotherapy, whether you're using frequencies, which is what you're made up of, is sound. We use sound medicine in many different ways. So when you go to allopathic medicine, then now you're using pharmaceutical drugs. You're taking tests that are very dangerous. They have side effects. Everything has side effects. And sometimes their answer is worse than the problem that you have already. So we have to get away from the poisons, the toxins, and start healing our body through the food we eat, through the thoughts we think, and then the other modalities that are available to us, like clean water, fresh air, sunshine, exercise, the old school stuff.
Yes. So there are some who are advocates of science, and they kind of poo-poo the idea of using herbs and whatnot. But back in the day, grandmother would send us out into the woods, and we'd come back with plants, and somehow those plants would take care of whatever we were dealing with. But fast forward, things like pine needle oil are largely ignored. Can you talk about some of the natural ways that we can heal the body using those plants and herbs?
Oh, everything. Absolutely everything. For the past 30 plus years, I've been an herbalist. So I've used herbs for everything from just baths, treating your feet, fungus of the toes, healing your skin, scars, scar tissue, healing the inside, the outside. Sage is a good herb to use as an example because sage, we put it on our turkey or our dressing and that sort of thing for Thanksgiving, but it's actually a powerful healer on many different levels. And so sage helps to heal your internal organs. It brings the body back into balance. So if you have any kind of scarring inside or outside, sage tea will begin to heal that and bring your body back into balance. It's amazing the things that sage can do for you. Just
Oh,
one herb.
just one herb. Another thing that I know that is abundant, especially for those who don't fertilize and put chemicals on their lawns, is dandelions.
Yeah. Yes. Dandelion root. Your bladder, your urinary tract. It's very powerful. It's a blood purifier. Dandelion root is very good for you.
Hmm. And then I'm also aware of some other things that are in our environment that we may not be aware of, like purslane, for instance. Just things that are growing around us that we're not aware of. Are you aware of any resources that folks can use to determine what's useful to them?
Well, when it gets into herbs, you really need to study because what happens is people start using aromatic herbs for medicinal purposes. There's different herbs for different things, and you really have to know what you're doing. You can't just jump out there and start eating stuff. But I see people do stuff all the time, and it's just due to lack of knowledge. They don't know what they're really doing. You really have to know what you're doing because there are some dangerous plants out there and they can be used for healing, but you have to know how to use them. And if we say sage, you cannot boil sage. You need to steep it. If you boil sage, it becomes a poison. But if you steep it, then you get the healing from it. So you have to know what you're doing with these different herbs.
That's interesting. Sage is something that's commonly used in cooking as a spice to provide flavor. Is there any danger to using it in those ways?
No, no.
Okay.
When you boil an herb, it's going to be a long 20, 30 minutes. It's in that water and it's boiling. So you start to activate a different chemical reaction in it. But when you steep it, the water is already hot. So it's not continuing to increase. So you're not activating a chemical change in the herbal structure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm getting some feedback from our engineer that there may be some feedback coming from your microphone. So
Okay.
if you could maybe turn down the volume. And as we take this pause, I'd like to welcome Brother Hamtonio to the broadcast. How you feeling today, bruh?
No, not too bad. Not too bad.
Okay.
So,
Do you have anything that you have as a burning issue that you want to ask our
well,
expert this morning?
well, yes, definitely want to get into the frequency thing. I don't want to get too far in it because if you're going to take a break, but I definitely understand, and I think our audience needs to understand the whole thing about frequency. And I think once we get a good hold on this whole frequency piece, then we can start as just as people, just understanding, how herbs work, how sound work, how music work on the body and those things, and you start to approach those things differently, with an understanding. And with that, because our ancestors, like she said, healed with sound, music, and now we can understand why that's important. And then we may take issue a little bit too, far as the system is concerned, far as music is concerned. Um, while it's being produced at the 440 hertz rather than the 432 hertz, and things like that. So you'll be surprised on the whole frequency piece, on how it could change everything. How you approach things, how you approach life, and what you put around us. You can start developing your house around you with certain type of frequencies. Our people look at things like crystals and stones and like that, and like, wait a minute, that's not alive. What's that's all about? Why? How come a certain rock or crystal or can have any kind of healing properties that would affect me as far as helping me? So when we open our minds up and understand that everything is about frequency and everything is about energy, then it changes your whole approach to health, life, and everything.
Yes. A couple years ago, maybe it was within the past couple years, we did have a guest along with Dr. Talbert who practiced quantum healing using frequencies. So I wanted to invite you to give us a detailed explanation of frequencies and how they can be utilized to our benefit and also how they can be utilized to our detriment.
So the frequencies itself is just sound, and everything creates a vibration. So if you have your phone next to your body, it's emitting a sound, it's emitting a frequency. That's the way it's able to communicate with other phones at a distance. It's sending out a frequency, it's sending out some level of sound, even when you're not using it. So that is going through your body. And your body is full of cells that actually have their own sound. And every organ in your body is creating sort of music, a note, a frequency. And so when you start getting bombarded by these outward frequencies, these towers, your modem in your house, all of the different things that's going on, your microwaves, the TV, the radio, everything is on some level of frequency and it is going through your body. So those things affect you. And because they're man made, they're negative. They're on the wrong levels of frequency. They're in low vibrations. So you start to have radiation. So when you look it up, it's coming from the electromagnetic field. So everything is light. Everything is light and it transfers to a note, to frequency, to sound. And that is electromagnetic energy. So there is positive realms that affect us positively, and then there's negative realms that affect the flesh, the body, the mind negatively. So you really need to know what you're exposing yourself to and then how to protect yourself. Just like Antonio said, there's certain things, certain stones that can protect the energy around your home because it starts to cancel out the frequency. And that's why in ancient sculptures and buildings, the architecture is all based around stone. And if you do any research, you'll find out the stone they used was for a specific reason because that stone has certain attributes and it can help for whatever they were trying to do. Whether it's to amplify a frequency or to cancel out frequency. Many different things different stones do. So it's just that we lack the understanding or knowledge that goes deeper into these types of things.
So, the idea of crystals, can you talk about what crystals are and how they work?
Well, everything is made of carbon on this planet. It's a carbon based, we have a carbon based planet. And I should say that's the most of the molecules that are on this planet. Of course, there's many different elements that make up these things. But most of the crystals resonate. If you deal with, like, we have crystals in our computers, in our cell phones, and all electronics, they use some type of quartz crystal. But usually they manufacture these crystals because a quartz crystal that you would find in the ground would not be pure enough to actually hold the frequency as clearly as what they need for this technology. But all this technology is based on crystal, which is resonance, vibration, frequency, once again. And crystals of many different kinds do different things because they resonate at different levels of vibration. So they affect different parts of you. They can help different parts of you. And it's worth the while to study. And that's one of the reasons why I offer the classes on natural healing, holistic living. And we go through many, many different crystals. We go through many different minerals so that you see where the mineral comes from, the attributes of it, how it helps you. Talk about vitamins. We talk about the healing, natural healing of the body, so many different things. And really, we just need to start getting into this information because you need to know. You need to know. People need to know. Everybody has a body, but not everybody knows how it works or how to heal it.
Right.
Yes.
That I think that's important. Are you going to break or are you going to stay on?
No, we're going to keep going. And I just
Okay.
want the folks out there who are watching to see this. I have a few of these. This is argonite. And this is one of the things that I implement to counteract the EMF. I'm working to get up a slide on the screen, and perhaps in the second hour of the show, I'll be able to share the screen so that folks who are viewing us on YouTube and Facebook can see it. But, I was able to get a number of these through Amazon. And, you got to be careful about where you get stuff from. But I have no doubt about the fact that this is real and it does what it is supposed to do. Also, upon the advice of Dr. Talbert, I got some red pine needle oil. So that's one of the modalities that I'm implementing, and I try to take it every day. I just take like 5 drops or so under
Yeah.
the tongue every day, and it's one of the ways that I can defeat some of the things that are floating around in the atmosphere that threaten our health. So,
Yeah.
very important to know about these things. Tell us about the classes that you're doing. Are they online, in person? How does that work?
Well, we have classes that are online. The Natural Healing Holistic Living classes are already recorded, they're pre recorded. It took us 4 years to complete those classes. There's 40 different lessons. The first two levels, there's 3 levels to it. The first 2 levels, anybody can take. You can take a la carte. You can go in and say, oh, this looks interesting. I'd like to take this class. Or you can be serious and want to be trained to become a transformational healer. So that means you would take all 3 levels in, of course, in order so that you're getting the information because it's built on one another. Each lesson builds on the other one before it. And these classes are phenomenal. We actually have our first graduating class that finished in June of this year. So we had a big celebration for them, a graduation, and we're offering free healing circles. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, Sunday, we have a healing circle. It's in Independence. And this class actually gave me the ability to offer these healing circles because it's just me. So I need to train people so that they can help do healings. So all of our transformational healers that are here in Cleveland are volunteering their time to help give free energy sessions to people. And they're practicing Qigong healings. So that means you'll sit in a chair. You don't have to lay down. You can sit in a chair. And it's on a walk-in basis. It's from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. And if anyone is interested, then you can go to my website at awakenthehealing.com and send a contact form. And if you have a Gmail address, you would need to include your phone number in there because Gmail has blocked me from being able to contact people through email.
Yeah.
I find that kind of interesting. Uh, One thing I wanted to touch on too, that and make our audience understand a little bit. I speak on Dr. Royal Rife. He was in the like 1920s that developed a machine that can cure cancer. And how he went about this principle of doing it, he dealt with frequency. And I think something is more important would bring some understanding to our audience is understanding that everything resonates at a certain frequency. So he was able to dial in the frequency that was necessary to deal with cancer cells, and understanding that a good cell vibrates at a certain resonant frequency, and a bad cell or a cancer cell resonates at a certain frequency. So he was able to tune into that cancer cell's frequency by emitting some type of frequency into the person's body, therefore destroying the cancer cells and leaving the good cells alone. Now, this is way back in 1920s. So you think our system, our medical system, understands that? Cancer Foundation has been taking billions, quadrillions of dollars from in research monies forever. We all this technology we dealing with, trying to go to Mars and whatever, and you think they haven't figured out that at this point? So is that whole or their approach to cancer, is that all about population control or something to that particular nature? So uh, in saying that, like when we use the example of how we used to see on TV when somebody sing and they sing a certain frequency and it breaks the glass.
Right.
That's when those are that particular molecules responded to that particular frequency, and therefore dispersing and separating the glass. So that's how everything works on the planet. And so by doing that and understanding that, again, like I said before, you approach smells, musics, um, sound, all in a different matter. So I think that is very important. So then, and our ancestors understood it, and a lot of the stuff that they talk about plants and healings like that, it's not spooky. It's about this frequency that particular plant or herb puts off that affects the body in a certain kind of way. Because all of us work walking around with some type of aura frequency. Anything that moves in molecules, that brings off a frequency, therefore a magnetic field. So once we start looking at everything around us more in the terms of energy and frequency, then we would start to maneuver a little bit different, and then we would start to understand that you know, in essence, we just won't operate in ignorance like that. We'll be more concerned about what's around us, what we're doing, and what kind of frequency environment that we are putting ourselves in. It would come more to light and an understanding.
Okay, so I think that is a perfect segue, Dr. T, to tell us about Royal Rife and how that technology has evolved. I know you have partnered with Tom Palladino. As a matter of fact, I acquired a frequency device upon your urging. So, talk to us about where that technology is now and how we can utilize it.
Wow, the technology is amazing. There's so many advances to what Royal Rife did. And we have many different scientists around the world that have been perfecting what he started. So at this point, there's literally devices that you hold in your hand that analyze your entire body, that biofeedback, where it sends a frequency through the body, and the response is that we can see every system in your body, every organ. We can see the blood flow in the brain. We can count the cholesterol levels of your blood. We can actually measure the pH of your urine. Just by holding a tube for 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes in your hand, we can scan the entire body. We can scan the eyes, the ears, every system, and know everything about you. So just like Antonio said, the knowledge is out here. This science has been perfected. And of course, our medical field knows about it, but there's no money in healing. There's
Mm,
absolutely no money in healing, because if you have individual scientists creating these things, think about what whole countries backing billions and billions of dollars that they have. Of course, they've been using that technology to help kill people. I mean,
that's
literally
right.
outright, because it's more toxic and poisons out there, and more ways of getting it into your system. You're breathing it in. It's the chemtrails in the sky, it's the toxins in the water. And tell me why we don't have clean water. Why can't we have clean water systems wherever we live around the world? There's answers to everything. The technology is out there. We certainly don't lack the technology. What we lack is people that are moral and ethical, that are running these countries, companies. Everything is business, and the business is making money. So it's not about healing people or getting rid of disease and sickness, which Dr. Royal Rife had done by the 1930s. Every known illness to man was solved by the frequencies. And if you go back and you study his story, you'll see they tried to destroy him after that. But that was confirmed by many different scientists and doctors around the world. They were using his machine. But that's the only reason why we have the technology now, is because he shared it with many different doctors and scientists around the world. So when it became dangerous to use his technology, others then hid it away until it was a safer time, and they continued to work on it and perfect it until a safer time, like now, for it to come back out. So since the early 1990s, his technology has been back on the scene and being perfected. Was being perfected all along. But for us, for the everyday people to be able to get our hands on it, so just like you, Vince, you have a machine that's amazing, and it is incredible. It's like having everything you need in your back pocket. You can help yourself. So this is what people need to learn how to do, but you need knowledge. I don't care what you're using. If you even if you're using heliotherapy, you're using the sun to help yourself. You need to know how to use the sun. Or the same thing that can heal you can harm you. So you need to know that. It's just all about knowledge. It's all about knowledge. So people need the knowledge, because the tools are here. The information is here. The equipment is here. So there's no reason why we're still walking around sick, dying, limping. I'm about to have my 52nd, third birthday, 53rd birthday. I don't even know how old I am. So,
Mhm.
but there's no reason for us to be aging and all of this. That's
Mhm.
disease. That's a state of disease, because we are energetic beings. We are constantly renewing ourselves energetically. So all of that is really illusion. So if you equal up radiation, the side effects of radiation, and what we call aging, you're going to get the same exact symptoms. So we are really just toxic. And when you see that aging process happening, is because you're lacking, you're dehydrated, you're toxic, you're radiated. It's all those things happening. And your body is showing you it's losing information, it's forgetting how to restore itself. And that's through frequencies. Frequencies bombarding you, going into your DNA, rewriting you. The mRNA is extremely important because it's information. So whenever you take something into your body and it's rewriting your DNA, what are you putting in your body? What are you being rewritten to do? So we are really extreme, high tech. Our bodies, our biology is high technology. And that's why frequencies and things of that nature work with us. And that's why it's being used against us. So we just need knowledge to know how to use it for us, because really it comes down to the information that we lack of why we suffer from it. So we can protect ourselves. We do have, and it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much, really, to be honest. You can ground yourself and get rid of radiation. So just earthing pads, having an earthing pad in your home, that you sit at your desk, or you sitting at the TV watching something and laying on the couch, you're laying on an earthing pad, you got your feet grounded when you're sitting up, and that will get the radiation out of your body. But if you don't ground, then all that stuff just stays inside of you and begins to deteriorate you and decompose you. So it's really simple information that can really help, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money.
Okay. We're going to step away just for a few moments so that we can work on your sound, and then we're going to come right back with more of 360 Info Network. Our special guest is the Reverend Dr. Trenayce Talbert. She has a website. It's called awakenthehealing.com, and you can go there. You can get the book that she wrote, Doors of Light. You can also send an inquiry and find out how you can take advantage of the classes that she is teaching. She also mentioned certification. So if you are interested in becoming someone who is versed in holistic healing practices, you too can become a healer just by connecting with Reverend Dr. Talbert. We're going to be back with more 360 Info Network right after this.
All right, I'm gonna go get my headphones.
Okay, you got 55 seconds. Okay, Brother Lynn, you said there was two E's in what?
And her banner healing.
Her banner is one that she created.
Oh, okay. Just let it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, but we can run her crawler on the screen and straighten that out. I watched They Clone Tyrone again.
Again.
I wanted to be ready for this show.
Yeah, she was sounding good for a second, then it went back to the echo, and I hear a little bit me too. I don't know if it's coming through her thing or not.
Okay, we are back with Dr. Trenayce Talbert. I got to get used to calling you Reverend Doc. I guess I knew, but I didn't know. But no matter what the titles are, you are doing great work, and we really appreciate the insight that you are bringing to us. I was thinking as we were talking about frequencies and the things that we're swimming in, and then you brought up the chemicals that surround us. And I was just sharing during the break that I had watched the film They Cloned Tyrone. There is a scene in the movie where they're in a restaurant and they're eating chicken, and everybody starts laughing, and it's because of a chemical that they put in the chicken that caused them to have that, I guess, ecstasy all of a sudden. And I know about certain excitotoxins like MSG, monosodium glutamate, something that it excites the brain. So when you're eating something and the MSG is in there, because you have that excitement, then you have this kind of happiness that happens. I saw something online a couple weeks ago. I think it was a student minister in the Nation of Islam, and he was talking about Popeye's chicken. And he said that there were something like 45 ingredients, and 33 of the ingredients were man-made chemicals. So in essence, you're not eating a chicken sandwich, you're eating a chemical sandwich. With that being said, what you were sharing about our bodies, you know, the electrical aspect of it, the fact that we're light beings, we're living beings, and everything that we ingest has an impact on us. It's really important for us to understand why we have to be concerned about what we put in our bodies, also what we put in our minds, and also the way we are affected by all these different adversities that we're dealing with that perhaps affect us on a spiritual level. So just keeping in mind the fact that you are Reverend Doctor, can you talk about how spirituality plays a role in enabling us to experience optimal health?
That's pretty deep. It's profound. It's profound because what you eat determines the level of consciousness you can hold in your body. Because we are made up of what we eat. So when they use neurotoxins in the food, as you described with the MSG and all of the other neurotoxins that they put out there, they affect us so that certain parts of our consciousness cannot awaken. And basically, what it is it poisons you. And so, when you're poisoned, you're weak. Your body's not just weak, but your mind is weak. And as well as your auric field is weak. And that means that the way that we communicate, like cells in the body. Cells in our body communicate through light. And so that cell needs to be healthy in order to communicate with other cells. If the cell is weak, then it can't get its message out. It's internalized, trying to use the energy to heal itself or to fight off whatever's going on in it. So if we look at ourselves as a cell in the body of the universe, we have to be healthy physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, in order to communicate with the whole universe. That's where our power comes in at. So when we are disconnected, there's studies that show, many studies that show that cancer patients, their light does not get exchanged with the environment around them. So what naturally happens is that my biophotons in my body get exchanged with every other living organism around me. Our biophotons are constantly exchanging. But when we're sick, this starts to die off and the power to exchange those biophotons goes down. So with cancer patients in particular, they don't exchange their light with their environment. So this is very interesting when you start talking about the light, photonic healing, light healing, energy work in that way. We have to be able to absorb light from the sun. It has to be a certain frequency. When we use the sun tan lotion and the sun block, is actually frequency scrambler that we're putting on our skin. It scrambles the frequency of the sunlight so that it's no longer healing. It turns very dangerous for us. And that's where the cancers are coming from. Not from the sun, but from the sun blocks. So you need to do your research. Everybody just needs to study and begin to become aware that people are making a lot of money off of you being sick. They're not going to make the money off of you being well. They're just not going to make the same amounts.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to what we've come out of in terms of the Pandeezy. And, it seems like there was an obsession with hand sanitizer, and people they were applying it religiously. Every time they walk into a building, hand sanitizer. And I know that they used titanium dioxide in the hand sanitizer. When you talk about chemicals, they're so pervasive. The water is fluoridated, and we've talked on this show about the dangers of fluoride being in the water supply. And when you look at the history of it, it was because they wanted to find a use for this product, not that they wanted to provide protection for our teeth to prevent cavities, but because they had an ulterior motive. They wanted to implement a calcification of our pineal gland. So, as you said, it just kind of keeps people dumbed down. Then I reflect on the movie once again, and there's a scene in the film where they're at a club, and the DJ, who happens to be one of the clones that's being operated by the so-called powers that be, puts on a song, and then people start spinning in circles. So it was like they were in a trance. They were zombies. And then there's another scene in the film where this zombie, I'll say, is walking down the street, and they just pick him up and take him away. This whole idea of this underground type operation mirrors the fact that there are underground military operations. So there was just so much to unpack in that film. I think that people need to watch it, but not just watch it. Watch it with a discerning eye. Watch it with the intent of learning something about what's being done, but also what you can do to combat what they are doing. So if it means that chicken is a toxic substance, then perhaps you should think about not eating chicken. And I know it's hard for us to swallow because we've been doing it for so long, but there are some issues with that particular meat for us. Dr. Talbert, are you aware of anything about chicken that, aside from the things that they put on us, is dangerous to us?
Chicken is one of the most inflammatory meats along with pork. But chicken causes you to have many of these ailments that people have. Their joints are all messed up and inflamed, arthritis, whatever we call it, whatever name we're calling it. Chicken causes inflammatory issues in the body. But it's not just the chicken, it's this poison is in everything, it's systemic. So we really have to look at our food supply because that's how we're being poisoned, is through the food and through the water. So you have to take control of the water you're drinking. Again, reading labels, and praying to God that when you do get spring water, you're not being poisoned through that. You really need to get spring reports. Go back to the company where that water came from, and it'll take you, if you go to their website, it will take you to the spring, the source where they get their water from, and they have to do water reports. So if you do drink spring water, you should have a water report on your water monthly. You should be doing that. But there's many different water systems out there now you can use to get the fluoride out of the water, to get your water to where it's healthy. Again, the alkaline water systems can be overused because your stomach is not supposed to be alkaline, it's supposed to be acidic. So a lot of people drink too much alkaline water. They cause their stomach to get imbalanced with the alkaline acid balance that's there. So you have to really study. Again, it just goes back to knowledge. You have to know what you're doing out here because today is about navigating this. It's really about navigating the awakening because the awakening is the expansion of consciousness. And humanity is awakening. Humanity is trying to figure out what's going on. There's a lot of people starting to say, hey, like you say, who cloned Tyrone, or they cloned Tyrone? What's really going on out here on this planet? Just like the storm that came through the other night. We have tornadoes in East Cleveland, really. Of course, now that there's a SpaceX program and they've got 40,000 satellites around the planet, of course, they can control the weather wherever we go. But we have to also know that we have the power to override that technology. The technology that's inside of us is more powerful than that which they have created. But we have to align ourselves. That's where the shadow work comes in. That's where the internal light comes in. You have to develop your power. It doesn't just come to you just because you're human, you just get it. But that's one of the reasons why they're poisoning humanity across the board, is so that you can't develop those powers, so that you don't get stronger. And so you
Okay.
have to begin to become aware of it before you can start helping yourself and learning what you can do to empower yourself to override. We truly can overcome whatever obstacles are out there. We do have the power, but we have to learn how to use it. And as far as that sounds, it's proven, it's scientifically proven that the consciousness of the people, alter the weather around them. So, we're in a battle right now, and it's the technology that's being used against us.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's very, very interesting. And when you talked earlier, I kind of like want to go back to that a little bit about the spirituality piece. And I think we don't really have a good understanding what spirituality is, that unseen world, because that's what we're talking about. That unseen world, how that unseen world affects the body. It's the unseen that rules the seen. And giving an example about, I was reading, I mean, I was listening to some of our Khan brothers over in Ghana, how they look at light and how they look at life in general, and God, you know. And it brings me back to something that I've been saying recently about oxygen or air. We need air to live. The trees give off oxygen to air, and they take in our carbon dioxide. That's a relationship right there. That's a spiritual relationship. That's a sacred relationship right there. You know what I'm saying? So life is in the air, you see, and so that means God's essence. See, we looking at this thing scientifically. See, they was looking at it as spiritually.
Right.
God's life energy is in the oxygen that brings you life. So life gives off life. Nothing dead can give off life. So that's why they understood that The rock is alive. The trees is alive. God's essence is in everything around you. That's his energy. So they say God is nature. God is not the source of nature. Nature is God. He evolved, or he is the source of everything that is living at this particular point. So if oxygen gives you life, that means that is God that is giving you life. This is how some of the concepts they was talking about. So you eat that piece of fruit, it brings forth life. So that means God is in the fruit, that his energy is that is bringing forth life. So something dead can't bring forth. So they say
Okay, it looks like it. Yeah, his signal kind of dipped out there.
I just
Uh,
said technology.
right. Well, we talked about Mercury retrograde at the top of the show. I want to go back to what you were saying about water, specifically alkaline water, because once upon a time I went in and purchased an alkaline machine, and little did I know that machine did not filter out fluoride and chlorine and all the other chemicals that are in the water. So when you have an alkaline machine, you have to also purchase a filtration system for that. A few months back, you told me about something called shungite. Can you tell us about shungite and how that can be used to purify your water?
Shungite transmutes toxins. And if you just take one piece of elite, you have to use the elite shungite. If you take one large piece of that and you put it in a jar of water, you test the water before you put the shungite in there, you will see the level of lead, the level of heavy metals that's in there. It's pretty miraculous what the shungite does. And then after, say, an hour or so of the shungite sitting in that water, those levels will be completely different. So it's the transmutation process, but shungite is almost 100% carbon. And carbon has the ability to eliminate toxins. So again, carbon can be used to heal or to harm. So you have to know how to use the carbon, but that's why you can use the um, different types of carbon like shungite in order to clean the water. Is water filtration systems also can use carbon filters. You can see carbon being used in many different things. But the activated charcoal is another way to use carbon for healing. Again, charcoal is carbon based. It's just again knowledge of what it is, but then they do have carbon that is being used, that is part of that the jab or whatever you want to call it. They had in there shards of carbon that actually begin to cut up the veins. So there's different ways to use carbon for healing or for other purposes, just like anything. But you should know how to remove heavy metal from your body, because once it's in your body, most likely it gets trapped in the brain. And that's where people get the fog, sorry, the brain fog and the issues with memory and all that sort of thing. It's from the heavy metals. One of the issues, but it's a huge issue because we've been bombarded by heavy metals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one of those sources I'm led to believe is the chemtrails that you referred to earlier. When they spray from the skies, it's dropping aluminum, strontium, and barium down into the atmosphere. It gets into the soil. It plays a role in depleting the minerals in the soil, but it also makes contact with our skin. And if, as you say, it's somehow getting to our brains, then it's going to affect our mental capacity. So very important to understand that. There are some other things perhaps that we can do that may involve vitamins or supplements to help us deal with metals in our body. Can you suggest any of them?
The bentonite, the calcium bentonite is one of the most effective ways to remove heavy metals from the body. So I've been doing a lot of work with the bentonite, and what I've noticed is that people who are using it don't have the heavy metal in their bodies anymore. So obviously it's working. So we do dry blood analysis, we do a biofeedback with the blood. We also do analytical quantum analysis of the body. So we can get not only the blood levels of your lead, of all of the different arsenic, all these different heavy metals that's in your blood specifically, but we also can scan quantum wise and find out many different heavy metals that are in the body. So the heavy metals are very difficult to get rid of if you don't know what to use. So I would strongly suggest the bentonite. Now there's different ways you can do bentonite. You can take baths in the bentonite, which is the clay you add to your bath water. If you're unable to get in a bath, then you can also soak your feet in bentonite clay. So I also suggest the liquid bentonite that you can take orally. So that has to be diluted in water, and it's best diluted in hot water because it is volcanic ash. So it really gets activated in hot water. And what it does is it works on a magnetic level. It begins because it's such a high negative ionic charge. Everything that's a toxin has a positive charge. So with the bentonite, it's a negative charge. And once it gets in your body, it means it has a lot of free electrons in it. Once it gets in the body, it then absorbs through magnetic all of those free radicals that's running around your body that's looking for electrons. It absorbs them and then it transmutes it and turns it into something that's no longer the chemical that it was before because it was lacking electrons. So we really need to know something about chemistry as well for our bodies because we need to know how this stuff works. It's not as complicated as they make it in school. I think sometimes we're taught things just to discourage us the way that we're taught so that it seems so complicated, but it really isn't that complicated. And we all can understand it. If we know how to read and write, we can understand the basics of chemistry. And that's all we need to understand that things are made up of molecules, electrons, protons, neutrons. And when they're in a certain structure, they give it a different name. But once something is a radical, a free radical, it means that the electron is free. And that's what happens in our body when we get radiation. It begins to weaken our cells and breaks down our cells so that we begin to create free radicals in the body, which means it strips away our electrons. And that's why we need the antioxidants, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E. Those have high levels of free electrons. And so they go into the body and they find all those positive ions that are looking for electrons that are harming you. Because when they're running around the body, they're doing damage. You need those ACEs, what they call ACEs, your antioxidants. So you need to know that our diets need to be versatile, and there's nowhere where meat is healing to us. Everything in the body starts getting broken down when we're eating meat. Our digestive systems cannot assimilate the meat. Even people that have O body types, O blood types, they have more of the enzymes in their blood that can break down protein, which is a long strand amino acid. A complex amino acid is what proteins are. So when people say we need our protein, we need our protein. That's why we need to eat meat. That's not true. We need amino acids. And proteins are just complex amino acids. I'm still getting feedback. Vince, I think you need to go put your headphones on.
Well, I've turned my volume down. The engineer has suggested that perhaps that you turn yours down. It might help with the feedback issue. And I just want to remind the listeners that we will be continuing our conversation online in 360 page 2. You can stay tuned on Facebook and YouTube, and we will continue this conversation with Reverend Dr. Trenayce Talbert. Before we get away, I was hoping that you could give folks some good sources for shungite? Because I'm sure that there are folks out there who heard you say that and see how easy it is to use it. Where are some good places that they can get that elite shungite that you mentioned?
Well, there's only a few trusted places where you can get stones today, really, because China is really good at imitating stones. So there's a company called Crystal River Gems, and they are located in Pittsburgh. So if you're not going to get it from Karelia, Russia, which might be a little difficult right now, considering what's going on in the world, that is where it comes out of. That's where I got all mine from before all this craziness started. But crystalrivergems.com. If you go there, just look it up on Google or whatever search you use. Look up Crystal River Gems, and they are one that is trusted. And look for the elite shungite. It's not cheap. You may spend $100 for a piece of elite shungite, but it will last a long time and it will help you. So, there's lots of videos on YouTube about shungite water. Just educate yourself on it and start using it. It's worthwhile. I mean, it's a very good way to help yourself to purify the water.
Well, I'm definitely glad you mentioned that. I tried to get some shungite and I ordered it on Amazon. The package arrived, and then I looked at the label on the package, and it came from Massillon, Ohio, which is about an hour away. And then I tested it because you can use a flashlight to test your shungite because it does conduct electricity. And when I ran a test on it, it didn't work. So I wasted my money on that shungite. But now that I have your source, I'll be able to get some. Brother Hamtonio, we have just a few moments left in the show. Is there anything that you wanted to announce or connect with the audience about?
No, just basically saying like the this sister said, we have to start studying for ourselves and understand garbage in, garbage out. And this man is filling us with a whole bunch of garbage and toxins and things out there. So what you feed the body is what you feed the brain, and let's use live energy and live food in order to feed the body.
Yeah. Well, bruh, you just said a mouthful. I
Mm-hmm.
hope that folks could really take in what you just shared with us because, there's just so much danger in our food supply that we're not aware of. We are eating food products that mimic food but aren't food, and we assume that they are. We watch the commercials. I saw a video yesterday where they were in a school and they had cereal boxes lined up throughout the halls and they did this domino thing with them. And I was just thinking about all the poison that was on the floor. There had to have been at least 1,000 students, and there was probably, a couple thousand boxes in this little domino charade that they went through. But just to think that we take in so many things that we don't need, but we need awareness, and that's why Dr. Talbert is with us today. I highly encourage you to visit her at awakenthehealing.com. We'll continue this conversation on the other side, and we look forward to you joining us there. You'll also be able to chime in with your comments. We'd like to thank our engineer for doing a superb job of running the show for us today. Tone, we appreciate you, and we appreciate you for listening. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your best day. Peace.
Peace.
All right. So that's going to be it for the 1490 version of 360 Info Network. But again, we are still live on Facebook and YouTube. We got a few folks who are on YouTube right now. Thank you for joining us. We have someone who has been diligent about viewing us on Facebook, and we appreciate your presence with us today. So now that we have the handcuffs off, perhaps we can dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that we've been talking about. Trenayce and Hamtonio, you brought up this idea of frequency, and Hamtonio, I think you mentioned how 440 hertz is being used to our detriment. Dr. Trenayce, you talked to us about how sound frequencies can play a part in healing. I know that there are tuning forks, there are sound bowls. Talk to us about how you effectively use sound in your healing practice.
I use many different forms of sound, but I have to say the tuning forks in particular are a way that anybody can start using sound healing because they're very inexpensive. And I would encourage people to get an ohm tuning fork. And usually those are about 136.1 hertz. And when you purchase an ohm tuning fork, there's different octaves of ohm. But when you strike those tuning forks, you want to actually touch the bony parts of your body. Find the bony parts of your body and then just hold the end of that tuning fork to the bone structure of the body. And what happens is that resonates through the bone because the bone is primarily made up of collagen and a crystal called apatite. There's literally little crystals in your bones and they're called apatite. So if you look that stone up, apatite is a phenomenal stone. It does amazing things, and we're made up of it. Our bone structure is made up of it. So literally with electron microscope, they were able to see it looked like vines. The collagen looks like vines, and within the vines, you see the crystals. So we've seen it with our own eyes now that we're made up of crystals. So what we've been taught by the ancients and through ancient scriptures and the mystery schools is really true. We are phenomenal magical beings, and our bone structure is literally crystal. So when you use the tuning forks, which anybody can buy one tuning fork, you can go on to eBay and get a tuning fork for $10 and then start using it. And you will see the difference in the body because it starts to bring back a harmony. It starts to bring back healing. And the first thing people start to notice when I do sessions with them, after the very first session, they feel more peaceful. See, because the sound, we have all this sound, the chaotic sound going on in our body, and we have to harmonize our sound. So it's like having a horrific going to see a philharmonic performance and everybody's out of tune. It would be horrible to sit there and listen to that. So that's what's going on inside of the body when you have all this free radicals. The cells are dying off. When they're dying off, they make white noise sound. Everything makes a different sound, just like Antonio said. When it's healthy, it makes a certain frequency. When it's sick, it has a certain frequency. And depending on the level of dis-ease in the body, it really can get out of sorts. So just a tuning fork begins to bring harmony back to the body, and you would be amazed at, first of all, the way you feel afterward, the more energy that you have, the way you start feeling more optimistic, has a lot to do with the parasites in the body. We have to get rid of these parasites. Our bodies are absolutely filled with parasites, and each and every parasite makes a frequency sound. So we have to get rid of all this extra noise. I call it static. We have to remove the static that's in the body and start bringing back our resonant sound so that we resonate more with the universe, with the energy around us. So that's how our health comes back, is through our sound. We have to sound good on the inside. And there's a lot of things in there that are blocking our sound.
That's interesting when you talk about sound, and I'm reminded of a short video clip that I saw the other day where a young man was talking about the fact that we listen to murder music.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about how, sometimes you can be in the street driving your vehicle and somebody will drive by and the bass is just so deep that it's rattling the speakers, or it's rattling the metal in their car, and it's also causing you a certain level of discomfort. And I'm often puzzled by why someone would intentionally subject themselves to that level of noise. Just thinking about that philharmonic orchestra that you mentioned and them playing discordant music,
Hmm.
and then to think that we would actually want to listen to that music, and we all know why the music is so prevalent. It's because they want to keep us in a lower vibrational state. And the young man even said that even though he's aware of the fact that it's not something that we should listen to, after a period of time when you listen to it so much, you know the lyrics, you're singing the lyrics, it puts you in a certain mind state, and then the next thing you know, you know, you might be a victim, or you might witness someone who has been victimized by the very thing that folks are singing about. They give us this music because they want us to stay stuck in that paradigm, and they don't give us intelligent, conscious music. And there's deliberate, there's a certain amount of deliberation that happens that results in us being exposed that. So to think that we could use a tuning fork, something as simple as a $10 piece of metal, to resonate in our bodies and create some positive momentum is an astounding fact. So tuning fork is definitely on my list. You also mentioned parasites, and I know that there are probably a lot of parasites in people's bodies that they're not even aware of. I know some people, because of the ingestion of a lot of meat over a period of time, particularly pork, they might have things like tapeworms and other things that are alive in their digestive systems. But then there's also a lot of bad bacteria, and I know that there's some bad bacteria that's necessary in your body. You got have to have a balance. I think it's something like 80-20, 80 good, 20 bad. But with that said, what kinds of things that can we do to affect parasites in our bodies in a way that allows us to remove them?
Well, if you're not going to practice frequency medicine, because frequency is the most profound way to get rid of the parasites. It's one of the best ways to get rid of the parasites, because parasites are very difficult to get rid of. And that's why you can almost kill the person before you kill the parasites, because they are entrenched in your body. So through frequency, just like Tony was talking about with the cancer cells, through frequency, the parasites can be targeted and removed, and you're not harmed in that process. But outside of frequency medicine, once again, I would have to say the bentonite. You can take some herbs, but I'm going to tell you, you can't take enough herbs to get rid of the ones that are in your body, because there are many different forms of parasites in the body. So the only thing I know of effectively is the frequencies.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing I
So,
want to add one thing before we go too far off from that particular subject matter. When we were talking about the tuning forks, I think it would be a good piece to add in for us to look up is Dr. Tass. I don't know if you heard of him before. I think his name is spelled Tass. You know, he's from Stanford, and he come up with a breakthrough in dealing with Parkinson's. And he developed this particular glove, this frequency glove that he tweaked and tweaked. They have some other gloves that I seen that's on the internet, but I I guess I refer back everyone to his particular glove. But he's from Stanford, and I don't know if the glove is hit the market, but he's done some astounding things with Parkinson's using this glove from the fingertips, and it emits a certain frequency. And one other guy, one of our good brothers, Dr. Craig Woodson, would say it tells the brain to stop firing all at once, telling the body to do something. That's some of the that's a little bit is what's happening when you're dealing with Parkinson. So in his documentary that you can see on YouTube, where a guy comes in, can barely walk and move, things like that, and he puts the glove on for about a couple hours, and then he gets up and walk in and is not shaking and things like that. So that's again, it tells us how frequency works in the body, and by using frequency and what our ancestors, it seems like they had a full understanding and knowledge of on how frequency and everything can heal the body.
okay. Anything you want to add to that, Dr. T?
No, he's absolutely right. What I do want to add to that is the heavy metals that's trapped in the brain. That's why you have a lot of neurological
Mm.
issues, especially with people now after the jab. You see that lots of neurological issues because there were lots of heavy metals and parasites in those shots. So um, we got to clean it out. We got to get our bodies cleaned up. And then
Yeah.
the frequencies can flow, the information can flow. It has to be able to communicate. But those things are there to block the communication so that the body cannot communicate with itself. This is why you have lots of issues like that.
Yes. So the other day it was on TikTok actually, and I really hate that I didn't save that particular video, but there was a woman on who had a device that was about this big, it was about this big around, and she called it a frequency machine. And she said that you just put it on different places in your body, and somehow it uses the frequencies to create healing. Do you know anything about those devices?
Yes, there's lots of different devices out there. They're all using frequency. Depending on who's making it, how they design it. The one that you have is one style. There's many different styles. I have many different ones. They're all different. But again, it's the quality of the product. You need to do research on products because everybody's in for the money now. So there's a lot of different frequency machines on the market, and not all of them are equal. Just because they're using right frequencies and that's how they'll promote them, it doesn't mean they're the same. So you do need to use, some due diligence and study and find out what are they using, what frequencies, how much, science is behind what they've created. Because again, you can use a tuning fork and it's $10, or you can buy something that's $7,000 and it doesn't do more than the tuning fork. I've seen a lot of stuff out there and they're trying to get rich off of it. It's kind of ridiculous. So that you don't have to spend all that kind of money in order to get good frequency machines.
Okay. Since you mentioned the jab, can you share with the audience, perhaps deliberately and with great discretion, since
Okay.
we're on YouTube,
Right.
can you suggest some things that they can do to counteract the effect of getting jabbed?
Bentonite.
Okay.
Bentonite. Bentonite.
Okay.
Literally. Literally.
Yes.
It's one of the
Is
most,
there any great places?
pardon
Is
me.
any good places to get that?
Wow, there's a lot of places, but the brand that I use is Great Plains. That's the liquid. It comes from a company called Great Plains, and they've been around since the 40s. Um, and then if you're going to use the powder, I would do some research because there's many different companies out there selling the powder. So you just need to know your sources. But Aztec Indian. That's one of the brands that are out there that seems to be pretty good quality for the powder, the clay. But I've been buying it actually in bulk from a few different manufacturers. So, because I get it by 50-pound bags, I make a lot of different stuff with it. So, yeah, you just got to be real clear about what you're putting in your body and on your body. But I do trust the Great Plains liquid bentonite and iherb.com. I don't mean to promote anybody, but I use them a lot. And you can find a lot of different stuff there. And that's where I get that from.
Okay. We were going to talk about shadow work, and we kind of went off into some other directions. But I definitely want to give folks an understanding of what shadow work is and how it's beneficial. So, can you talk about what it is and how people can employ it within their own lives?
Well, shadow work is another one of those ancient techniques. So, depending on where you are in the world or where your culture comes from, it would be done differently. But there is very good information coming out of the ancient Toltecs. So, they have left us some very good information on how to perform shadow work. The ancient Toltecs were masters of the dream state, they mastered the dream state, which means that when you fall asleep, you go into different realms. It's not just a dream that you're having, you're literally in another dimension. And we haven't been taught about dimensional states of consciousness. That's why they're called different levels of consciousness, just like hypnosis puts you in an altered state of consciousness. You may be walking around and seem like you're totally awake, but you're under a hypnotic spell. And this is what we've seen in the world. And They Clone Tyrone talks about this very clearly, how people have been hypnotized. So when you sleep, you're in a state of hypnosis. It's another altered state of consciousness, but there's different levels. So you have the theta state of consciousness, the delta state, the beta, the alpha. And when you are awake every day and running around, you're in the beta state. And when you measure that through physics, your spin is going to be to the left. So physics measures everything as a positive spin or negative spin. Something is either decomposing when it's spinning to the left, or is growing and expanding when it's spinning to the right. So everything is spinning in one of those directions. So you're either decomposing or you're growing. It's the one or the other. Your thoughts are either decomposing thoughts or they're growth thoughts. Okay. So when you start doing your shadow work, what happens is, with according to the ancient Toltecs, you begin to master that part of yourself. It helps you to learn how to master different states of consciousness. So most people, they'll start to fall asleep immediately when they start to do this breathing. It's a breathing technique. Teaches you how to breathe, because our breath, as Antonio said about the oxygen and the life force that's in the air, our breath is what keeps us in a certain state of consciousness. So that's why you can use different types of breathing exercises to enter into different states of consciousness. So most people don't breathe deep enough, so they stay in a very light state, in which it makes them have very light, shallow breaths, which also induce a beta state of consciousness. And so when we go to sleep, or when we, let's not even talk about sleep, just sitting down watching TV. I think we talked about this before. I'm not sure if I did talk about this with you, Vince. But when you just sit down and go to watch TV, there were scientific studies done, because they created these machines to see what state of consciousness you were in, and to see how long it took for people to go into an alpha state of consciousness when they sit down and watch TV. So alpha state is where you're in the first level of a hypnotic state. That's where we go when we do meditation, when we go for walks in nature. Whenever you focus on anything, you go into an alpha state of consciousness, which immediately brings you out of that beta crazy state, but you can be focusing on the wrong things. So this is a very suggestible level of consciousness when you move into the alpha state. That's why when you're making your prayers, you should be saying positive prayers, because you're influencing a hypnotic state in the body, in the mind. When you're doing your meditation, it's supposed to be positive meditations. You're visualizing things that are very positive and healing, because you're working again with that level of consciousness. So when you start doing your shadow work, you go through breathing techniques, where you breathe in so many times and then you breathe out so many times. And it's with an intention. We set an intention with our breaths. So you will start to kind of fall asleep. Some people just lose consciousness immediately as soon as they start doing the breathing technique, because they have no power over their mind. And you start to see how strong you are, how suggestible you are. But it's to teach you and to train you how to be more conscious and awake in life, instead of in our waking state. Instead of all these things go by you and you never notice it. You never notice it because you weren't paying attention. We're not conscious. We're walking around unconsciously. So the shadow work helps you to release traumas that are in the body, in the spirit realm of you, in the energetic part of you. Because when you think about it, whenever a trauma happens, immediately your heart starts to pound faster and you start to breathe faster, and you're breathing those shallow breaths. So you breathe in the trauma. You literally breathing it in, and it gets trapped inside of your body, because it's real. Thoughts are real, energy is real, and it goes somewhere. So when you breathe it in, it goes to different parts of the body and it gets trapped there. So you have to consciously breathe it out. The same way you breathe in a trauma, you have to breathe it out. And that's what the shadow work starts to help you do, is to release energies that you are not even conscious of, that are in your body, that are creating problems for you in your life.
So, could you describe the process? Is it one where you sit with someone and they take you through this process, or is it something that you just do on your own? It seems to be not necessarily a simple thing to do.
Well, I have made it simple for everybody to start doing shadow work because it's profound. Um, you do it by yourself, but you can do it in groups. But I have on my website on awakeninghealing.com, at the top of that website at the homepage, there's a podcast player. And if you can scroll back right through that podcast player and you can go back to episode number 225, 226. That is the shadow work episodes. So I suggest people listen to part one because you need to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. You need to know what you're doing. And then 226 is where you run through it. So it's profound. It's a long process. One round of shadow takes almost 6 months to complete. So it's a 21-day cycle. There's 13 days on. 13 days you wake up and you do these breaths with these intentions. And it's eight different intentions you set. But you go through this breathing process. It takes about 30 minutes to do. And I mean, 30 minutes is going to change your life. But, I'm doing it with you so you don't have to figure it out. It's all there. But I suggest people listen to episode 225, and so you know what you're doing. You know the book you can get. Doors. The book is The Dawn of the Sixth Sun. Yes, that's the book that is in, because Sergio Magaña is the author of that, and he has brought that information back to us from the ancient Toltecs. It's very profound. Doing these cycles, each time you complete a cycle or a round, you have 8 cycles in a round. Once you complete that, then you actually feel it in your body. You feel it. You feel lighter. You feel more powerful. Because when you start doing your shadow work, things that you have forgotten about, things that you didn't even realize you remembered, start coming up to your conscious mind. It's because you're bringing them back out of you, because they've been buried somewhere in your body, somewhere in your energy field. And it gives you an opportunity to heal it. So we must start to heal ourselves. We must start to heal our shadow, because what's happening is everything outside of us is a mirror. We all live in our own universes, which can sound very metaphysical, but it's very true. We all live in our own universes, so nobody is experiencing the same reality, even though we all exist here on this planet together. We're not, because our perception of reality is totally different. So when I begin to do my shadow work, I'm going to have a different experience than anyone else, because we're all healing from something that we have taken in and are unconscious of. But everybody has the same results, that they start feeling more powerful. Um, Family traumas start to heal. People are having lots of issues in the families with their children, with their spouses, things of this nature. Everything is a mirror of you. So when you start to heal your inner shadow, your inner self, then everything outside of you begins to go through that healing process as well. And you start to see relationships change. People that maybe having issues with today, those relationships will change. Either they're going to get better, or the person is going to leave your life because they're not ready to do the work themselves. So everything has to mirror you. So if there's anything going on in your reality that you're not happy with, you need to really pay attention to it, because you're exuding that. It's a mirror, it's a reflection, and it's happening so you can become conscious of it, and you can start working within yourself. So that's the most difficult part for people to believe and to understand, that what's going on around me has something to do with me, but it does. It
Let me ask,
absolutely does.
let me ask a question. I know we talked about it earlier about food and things like that. And before I guess someone to get into or maybe get the full effects of shadowing and other things like that. Let's go. I just could you touch a little bit about the toxic environment or the toxic intake of food, how would that interfere them raising up to the level? Because bringing it in a biblical point of view where most of us can understand about fasting and prayer, and most of the prophets use fasting as a method to detox the body to raise their level of consciousness so they can make those particular connections. So I'm saying that to say how important in doing some of this work that diet can play into you getting the benefits that you're seeking.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. That's what I was saying earlier about what
Hmm.
you eat, your diet determines your level of consciousness. So if you're intaking toxins into the body, it's going to stop you from hitting certain levels of awareness, of awakening. So, but it really works together. If a person has a strong desire, they can be in the worst condition right now, but they have a desire to be free of all of that. And they truly want it. The will, the desire feeds the will, so you have to have a strong will, because that's one of the things the ancients across the board, wherever we look on the planet, when we look at ancient traditions, it is long term. We didn't do it for a day or an hour and we were done. This is our microwave society today. Nobody wants to be committed to anything. They want everything to be quick and fast, so it's easy to get over. But when you really commit to doing something in your life, then you're ready to do it for the rest of your life, if that's what it means, in order to get the result that you want. So we've lost that. Humanity has lost that somewhere on a large level. When we deal with the majority of people, they're very impatient. They can't commit to things. And you see that across the board. And even in school, people sign up for college, they want to go to college, they go to their first class, and tomorrow they don't go back. We're just not committed. We got to have a desire to change our lives. And the same thing happens when we're working on our spiritual development. And when I say spiritual development, a lot of people, they can say, oh, that's woo woo and go so on and so forth. But spirit is just another name for energy. We are energetic beings, and we are incarnated in these physical forms, but we are still part energy. This is what makes up this so-called physical form. Nothing is truly physical. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. So if we're eating dense foods, the density of the food will keep you at a certain state of consciousness. And that's why they want you to keep eating the heavy foods, because they don't want you to raise your consciousness. So the people have to have a desire and a will for better, for more, for higher. Because whatever you want, the universe will give you. The universe doesn't judge. There's no judging. That's why you can create whatever life you want. If you want to be a drug dealer, if you want to do this, go right ahead on and do it. The universe is not going to stop you, but you're going to get the results of your actions. If you want to do good things in life, the universe is not going to stop you. It's going to help you. There's a quote from the Holy Quran that says that if you desire evil, Allah will give you a devil as your companion. So it's across the board. It doesn't matter what scripture you come out of. This is what the universe is. It's here to support you. But we have to awaken and become more mature beings. This is the problem. We're like children. We're very destructive, very self destructive. And we want to blame everybody else for our problems. And that can be true. We are being influenced by others on, these things that are happening in our world today. Absolutely. There are other people influencing this stuff. But we have to take self responsibility. So it's going to take time, effort, energy, commitment, persistence, everything we have to get ourselves out of this mess. Because it's a mess on this planet.
Hmm.
And, as far as you were talking about, Vince, with the music, it's a smorgasbord out here. You can listen to it and you don't have to. Just because they put it out here doesn't mean we have to consume it. So it's our desire. What do we want? We're listening to it because we want to listen to it. We're eating it because we want to eat it. But until we stop wanting it, then it won't be there for us anymore. We're creating our own reality. So we don't have to experience the things we're experiencing. All we got to do is change our desire for what we experience, and our experience will change. We have to do the work to shift that consciousness level, to shift our diet, the way we think. People are so negative. They're always expecting bad things to happen, and so bad things happen. What
Yeah.
do what do you expect? Start expecting good, and say positive things to each other. Speak words of healing, because your words, again, we're talking about sound. Your voice is powerful. And so speak words of healing to each other. Speak words of love and appreciation. Speak words that free your heart, because when you speak, your heart and your voice are connected. So when you have a stuttering issue, when you stutter, there's stuff in the heart that needs to heal. People who stutter have to heal their heart. This goes into Chinese medicine. I mean, there's science behind this. So when you speak, you should be speaking from your heart. You should always speak your heart. And it should be spoken with love and wisdom. So wisdom is the fifth dimension, is your throat chakra. Your heart is the fourth dimension. This is where we awaken and we become connected to one another. And that's where we're moving into the fourth dimension. We've been in the third dimension in our solar plexus, and that's where it's all about power. But it should be about self empowerment, not dominating each other. And that's what this dimension has taught us. The third dimension has taught us to remove ourselves from that self, allowing other people to dominate us, and move into our self empowerment. And this is what we have to grow into. This is where humanity is growing from, the children that we've been, where everybody's been controlling you and telling you what to do. Now it's time for you to be mature and grow into wisdom, where you can speak it and create it. This is the process of growth, of spiritual growth, and activating the physical. It's the alchemy of the spirit.
Yes. I listen to Dr. Brown as often as I can, and I think it was him who shared the idea that children under the age of 7 exist in a theta state, which is one of the reasons that they're so creative at that age, and they haven't been corrupted by a lot of the things that take us into that lower vibrational existence. Just a few things running through my mind at the moment, and one of them just has to deal with what you've said about how these things in our environment affect us on such a great level. And then I think about the fact that there are people like you and others who are doing what we call light work. And then when we think of it in biblical terms, there's this idea of the chosen few, and the fact that so many people are not conscious, and now we're living in this place of awakening. We have these conversations about astrology, and we look at the Jupiter Saturn conjunction that occurred about 3 years ago. Some say we're living in the age of Aquarius. Some say that that's maybe 50, 100, 150 years off. What are your thoughts about where we are right now cosmologically?
I don't know if you all are ready for me on this one. I'm going to challenge you on this one, because there's no such thing as time. So if we really look at it that way, that there's no such thing as time, what we call time or dimensional states, planes of existence, is frequency. So we can be in the age of Aquarius today because we are vibrating at that frequency. Or we can be in the Bronze Age or the Iron Age because of our frequency. So it doesn't matter really what we call time, because when, again, it's perspective. We can look, there's several calendars being used on the planet today. So which calendar are you looking at? The Gregorian calendar? We go back to Caesar, he made his own calendar. We go back to the ancient, the Ethiopian calendar. In 2021, that was 2012 on the Ethiopian calendar. So it depends on what calendar are we using. It's an agreement. Time is agreement, because it's an illusion. We're agreeing. So we say, let's meet at 11 o'clock to start the show. Which time are you on? Eastern Standard Time, Pacific Standard Time? Which time? So we're in agreement with time, because it doesn't exist. So that to me doesn't matter. What matters is that people are trying to evolve, because we are the body universe. The universe exists within us. And if we are not in tune with our Aquarian energy, the consciousness of the Aquarian time is people coming together, is oneness, that's moving into the heart. It's moving into that fourth chakra. So we begin to awaken and see that we are all connected. How are we connected? We're connected through our light, through our consciousness. And so there's the separation. The separation is going to be through consciousness. Those who are awakened are going to be in one world, and those who aren't awakened are going to be in another world.
Let,
There it
let
is.
me let me add something to that then, and give us something to think about then. When everything is about energy, and I go back into I guess the word they use, entanglement. You know, when you're dealing with frequency, energy, cells, and things like that, saying that everything is connected. And based on the last statement that you said, it depends on where you at. You know, you can bring that Aquarian frequency into you. Depends on how you resonate. Now, going back to astrology and astronomy, when they talked about those particular areas that the planet may be at a particular time, would it be safe to say then the planet kind of, or the universe kind of makes it easier for some folks because we're moving in this particular universe, and would you say at certain times of the uh, time frames that the earth moves into a certain space to where more of a certain type of energy or frequency is more acceptable or receptible to people on the planet, therefore bringing you, when you say you was born at a certain time, that brings in certain type of attributes and certain type of emotions or characteristics of a people because of the certain alignment and time and energy and where we were placed at a certain point in time. How much of an effect, or is that a real thing?
It definitely is a real thing, but it is going to shift because, again, the dimensions are based on frequency.
Hmm.
So we can say we're on the same planet that we were born on, but we're not. When you look at what has happened on our planet, if you go back to the 1970s and then we come to now, we can say this is the same planet, but it doesn't look like the same planet. So, what has changed? The consciousness levels have changed. And some are calling this the Mandela effect. So, we can look at the Mandela effect. If you don't know anything about the Mandela effect, that's very interesting. I would suggest looking into the Mandela effect because people have different memories of history. And something as simple as everybody should be able to resonate with this, with the Monopoly, game Monopoly. And the little guy on there that had a monocle that he held up to his eye for Monopoly. He was a little rich dude, right? He was the banker or whatever. Um, there's no monocle anymore. And they're saying there never was. But many of us remember the guy with the monocle. So why are we having these alternate memories of history? And that is just something very simple, but we can go into many different examples. If you go onto YouTube and look up Mandela effect, it will blow your mind what people experience. And I personally have experienced many things that all I can say is we're jumping dimensions. So the ancients told us that the time we're living in now, and many, depending on where you come from in the world, what culture you're coming from, but they all come to this point: the Mayan calendar, the ancient Toltecs, the Native Americans say we're moving into the fifth world. The ancient Toltecs say it's the sixth sun. It's many different interpretations for the time we're living in that we've just entered, the age of Aquarius, whatever you want to call it. But there's a shift of energy that's happening.
Hmm.
And what's happening is that we're shifting to move back into the self. We're becoming more self aware. And we're beginning to realize that everything that is going on outside of us has something to do with us. And this is where we begin to take responsibility for the world and the earth and how we're connected. And it has a lot to do with just a shift in consciousness. And if you want to relay that to the planets and astrology, yes, as above, so below, it's all just a mirror, a reflection. But what will really blow your mind is that things shift. So depending on which reality you in, it's a different world. The Jupiter's in a different sign, and Aquarius is in a different place in the sky. And depending on which, idea or thought that you come from, they are different. So if you look at Vedic astrology, it's totally different. And we're all supposed to be on the same planet looking at the same stars in the sky, but why are they in different places? So it's interpretation. It's interpretation. So it can get very confusing. That's why you have to know what school of thought you're learning from, because they all have a different interpretation of where does Taurus start? Where is Taurus? Where is in different, like Vedic astrology, they acknowledge many different planets and the moon, and we don't acknowledge that in Western astrology. So Western astrology is the youngest form of astrology. You have Babylonian, ancient Egyptian astrology, you have Native American astrology. So which one are you coming from? They all are different.
Definitely not
That's
Western.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I'm so glad that you took it there because we have such a distorted idea of what time is. I'm mindful of something that I saw within the past couple of weeks that talked about how we celebrate birthdays, and the significance of blowing out candles on a cake and the ritual that's involved in it, and then the way that we program ourselves to accept what we describe as the aging process. But when you look at people individually, there could be a person that's 85 years old and is just as spry and limber and so forth and so on, and then you look at another person that's 85 and they're hunched over, you know uh, but I would have to imagine that one of the reasons for that is the differences in their states of consciousness and awareness. So
Yeah.
that person that's 85 years old that is practicing qigong, that gets the benefit of the healing properties of sound and movement and self-awareness and self-knowledge, they can exist without this thought that, hey, I'm 85, I'm supposed to be broke down. you
Right.
know these are realities that we accept and we program ourselves with. So it's like, I thought about this because I just turned 66, right? So when I was 364 days of 65, and then that chapter turned, then I'm supposed to be a certain way because I'm 66. But reality is, I'm in the same body, I have the same mind, I have the same spirit. So what has changed? The only thing that has changed is my perception of who I am because of the numbers of days that are in my life. But then when I take a step back and I understand that I'm an eternal being and that I have been through all of these cycles and different phases in a life, then why am I measuring my life in relationship to, 65 years and
Days.
364 days? It's
Mhm.
it's kind of a it's kind
You
of a
put yourself in
trap
a
that
box.
we that
Yeah,
that
you.
that we encase ourselves in, and then to perpetuate it, we have social media. So everybody is saying, "Hey, happy birthday," and sending you cake, and then and putting you into that mindset, when in actuality it can work against you because you have a false perception of yourself in relation to the eternal aspect of your being.
Let me add something right there, real quick. Yeah, and that's let's stay on the three screen too. You could put me back there. Yeah, thank you. Uh, yeah, it's really a trip like that because I'm going back and reflecting back to myself, and I started thinking about myself being older. But prior to that, I just still felt like the same silly guy that I was in the 20s and 30s. You know what I mean? But then other people say, "Oh, you're getting old. You're getting old," and I'm like, "Am I?" And so I started thinking about my age, and then seemed like things start changing in my body because I started putting myself into, mentally and consciously, what do you reflect yourself as seeing? Like when Vince said, the 80-year-old Vince, oh man, I'm 80 now. I have to be start breaking down now. I can't do this, and I shouldn't be able to do this. And I think you start putting psychologically and consciously and subconsciously, you start equating yourself with being old. And then therefore now your consciousness and your body is saying, hey, well, okay, let's act old. Let's be old now. And I catch myself of experiencing those particular things like that. And I say, wait a minute, I'm not old. 80 is not old. You go back to the Russian Georgians, and they're 100 years old, running 100-yard dash, and people doing a whole lot of things at 100. So we got to get out of that mindset of 60 and 70 and 80 is being old. It's just a testament to what Vince was just saying, is that it's all about, and something that your reality. There's something that Dr. Amos Wilson said: change your consciousness, it changes your reality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a really good book by Deepak Chopra, Ageless Body, Timeless Mind. And that I suggest everybody read that, Ageless Body, Timeless Mind, because I love Deepak because he brings in the science and the spiritual and he brings it together to show you there is no reason why people are aging. The only reason we believe it and then we're toxic. It's simply that real biologically we are renewing ourselves. And Vince, you said you're in the same body. You're not in the same body. All your cells are renewing themselves constantly. So you're not the same person. That's why we can heal. That's why we can heal. So when we think that our bodies are stagnant and that it's the same exact thing, it's not. We're breathing in, constantly breathing in new energy and breathing out the old energy. And when
Good
you
point.
just see yourself constantly being renewed, then you are being renewed again because we live our beliefs. We create our reality. And that's the way it would be. So of course people try to condition you because they make a lot of money off of so-called aging. So there's no such thing as aging. Humans are not supposed to be aging. This is why you have ancient scriptures that people were living to 1,000 years old. Live as long as you want to. But when we believe that we're supposed to, get a certain age and look a certain way, then we start to look that way. I'm telling you, I'm gonna be the sexiest 85-year-old woman on the planet.
I believe that.
Mhm.
I am. It's all about belief because truly we are renewing ourselves. We're energetic beings. We're not physical beings. We're energy that manifests as a physical form. So
Yeah.
there's no reason why we're looking like that. The only thing is
Mhm.
we've believed it. It was a conditioning and we've been poisoned.
Well, when you look at people like Ernestine, I think her last name is Shepherd. There's Chef Babette. There are others, and one of the common denominators amongst all of them is that they implement resistance training in their lifestyle. So they're very active. With Chef Babette, she just happens to be living on a plant-based diet, and you look at her and her age and where she is, and it's like she's defying age, but it's not necessarily defying age. It's just living properly and
Absolutely.
and having the right attitude. The correct attitude. What I'm learning is gratitude,
Oh,
because
yeah.
when you exist in a state of gratitude, then your body is programmed to be in that peaceful, joyful state.
Yeah.
So you look for the silver lining in the cloud. You don't keep yourself immersed in negative thoughts, and
Absolutely.
it's so important right now because we're surrounded by so much negativity. I mean, you turn on the news and all they're giving you is bad news.
Turn it off.
Turn it off. You know,
Yeah.
we had a tornado in Cleveland the other day, right? I turned off Amber Alerts on my phone. So I didn't get the warning. So I wasn't anxious about it. And when it happened, because I remember specifically when it happened, the wind kicked up and it blew hard for a minute or so, and then it kind of subsided. Now, yeah, had I gotten the warning, I could have taken shelter in my basement or whatever that they tell you to do. But when I look at that whole Amber Alert situation, I see it as one of those mind control techniques.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, you're driving down the freeway and there's this great big sign and it's got some information about somebody who's kidnapped some children or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
That's their situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not my situation.
Yeah.
And I'm not driving on the freeway looking for this car that I'm supposed to be looking at so I can
Right.
call somebody to come to the rescue.
Right.
But again, we're surrounded by so much negativity, and it's not existing in a state of ignorant bliss. For me, it's just about not taking myself to places that I don't need to be. I don't need to process that information because, as you talking about creating your own universe, creating your own reality, that puts you in control. When the power went out the other night, hey, I don't have power. What am I going to do? Am I going to be upset about something that I can't control? I've been in the dark before. I can go to sleep and wake up the next morning, and guess what? Let there be light.
Yeah.
There's light.
Exactly.
The stuff in my refrigerator, maybe it spoiled, maybe it didn't. But life goes on, but those things happen, and then we're traumatized. It's like, oh, I can't log on to the internet. Oh, I can't watch TV. Oh, I can't do all these things that they give us as medication for our existence, because that's kind of what it is.
Distractions.
It's a
Yeah.
medication, it's a
Hmm.
distraction, and it
Hmm.
keeps us in that mind state that doesn't permit us to ascend to higher levels of consciousness. There's so much deliberateness in keeping us in that mind state, but
Of
we
fear. Of
yeah,
fear. Hmm.
exactly.
Hmm.
But thanks to you and the great things that you shared with us today, we've got some tools. So I just kind of want to come back to a few things that really stuck with me. Bentonite, and we'll review and we'll suggest some of the sources that you mentioned so that folks can get the bentonite as well as the shungite. Those are some other things. Then we have the resources of your classes. So as we wind down, do you want to remind the listeners of how they can get to your coursework and what it is and what they can expect to get from it?
The course is Natural Healing Holistic Living Classes. You can go to my website at awakenthehealing.com. When you get there, you'll see classes at the top, one of the links. We're going to be moving the site around a little bit. So we're going to be renewing it, refreshing it. But just take a look around. It will be right there. You can click on that link and take you to the classes, which are on Vimeo. You can also find us on Vimeo at Awaken the Healing. And so anything that you're interested in, I would suggest just take a class and see if you like it or not. They're very inexpensive classes. You also get a free ebook with the class. The ebook is very detailed, lots of information. The classes are phenomenal. Everyone who has taken the classes continue to take the classes, and those that have graduated can't speak enough about how much they changed their life and how empowered they feel and how they've been able to help friends and family and themselves. That's what it's about. It's about self-empowerment, giving you knowledge, giving you tools, and not just giving you a little bit of information that you don't know what to do with. We teach you how to put it all together so that you can start being more empowered and help your loved ones and help yourself.
Okay. And you also have a podcast. Is that something that folks can tune into?
Yes, it's Awaken the Healing, Reclaim Your Life. You can find it anywhere out there. It's on every platform, Spotify, iTunes, everywhere. Awaken the Healing, Reclaim Your Life. It's all about self-empowerment. We do go deep on there. I'll be starting a new show on Om Radio Network starting in September. That's going to be navigating the awakening. And that's going to be all about ancient knowledge. I'll be sharing a lot of mystery school teachings on that show. I really want to give people some tools from the ancients on how to navigate this entire planet and how we've been tricked to use words to enslave ourselves. So we know the power of words. We know where our language came from. We know what the letters stand for. We know how to use numerology to free ourselves because everything comes from numbers, because everything is a frequency. So you got to know this stuff in order to wake up because the people that have been running the show for a long time, they all know this stuff and they've been using it as a tool
Against you.
against us.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that you are also in a community of folks who are engaged in belly dancing, and I would have to say, if you do that in 85, you'll still be
All
sexy.
right.
You'll be in good shape. You won't
Mhm.
have a whole lot of toxins. So if you want to
Mhm.
promote that, you can do that as well.
Well, Modern Belly Dance of Cleveland. You can go to modernbellydance.com and we offer classes. Our classes are actually out in Berea now on Wednesday evenings. And they are phenomenal. Again, everybody that comes to class, I have students that's been with me for 7 years. Lots of people stick to those classes. So it is kind of hard to get in, but we have a lot of fun and you get in shape. You feel good. You get your strength back. You get your joy back. You get your femininity back. You don't have to be a man all the time walking around. So much male energy in the world. We need that yin and yang balance. So come on out, modernbellydance.com, and schedule a walk in. Come and dance with me. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad you mentioned that, and perhaps that's a topic for another show. But that whole balance of masculine and feminine energy, one of the reasons that as a race we have so much conflict is because we don't necessarily apportion the correct proportion of masculine and feminine energy. We all are a combination of both.
Yes.
Men have feminine energy as well as masculine energy. Um, but because that balance is out of balance, we have that conflict. Any comments about that before we go?
Yes, the food is playing a very big part in that imbalance. The toxins are playing and the parasites.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Too much estrogen for men. And could you say the opposite for women?
Testosterone, too much
Too
testosterone
much
for women.
testosterone, and we
Mhm.
didn't get an opportunity to get into this, but Tyrone Hayes, Dr. Tyrone Hayes, did that research for Syngenta, and this chemical called atrazine is something that they put in uh, to fight to fight the pests that are eating up the crops. So corn is one of the most prevalent crops, and so you got atrazine not just in the corn but also in the water supply. So when you look around and you see how the alphabet community has increased to the extent that it has, it's partly awareness, but it's also partly that hormonal imbalance. And sometimes the sexuality is a result of perhaps confusion, perhaps uncertainty, perhaps not fully knowing. I know this is a deep subject, and some folks come into the world and they feel that they were born this way and that's how they live their lives. But we do have environmental factors that kind of create paradigm shifts in mentalities that cause people to go through changing their physical nature to suit their mental nature.
External.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
External.
There's chemicals that if the mother, while carrying the baby, if she's exposed to certain chemicals, then the structures of the baby's brain that begins to identify sex as it gets older are not developed. So there's many studies out there that show that chemical toxins affect the I guess you could say the consciousness, the level of consciousness of the child when it's starting to develop. So there's lots of attack on humanity because if everybody turns gay or homosexual, then we're done for. We're done for. There's no
Right.
more humanity. And then you need the baby farms. They got baby farms. They got baby pods. You can look up baby pods. You can order you a baby online. You can
Mm,
decide what
mm,
color eyes you want. What do you want it to be good
okay.
at? Playing the piano. It's out
Mm.
there.
Oh
This is
yeah.
Okay.
real. This is
Okay, but
happening.
yeah,
Gene
and
mapping.
you're right. And saying that, let's go back to what we just said and finishing up. With that technology that you just expressed, we can't deal with cancer. We can't deal with a lot of the ailments that we're talking about. What you say you create, I can decide what color blue eyes the baby. So they've been messing with the DNA, tapping
Exactly.
in and dealing with this a long time ago. They understood that the cells have memory. Your thoughts has is energy that can cause your cells to generate in a positive way and degenerate in a negative way. They have studied this stuff, like our good brother Dr. Wayne said in a seminar that we were doing, talking about in 1984 they completed the first successful cloning of animals. Now that was 30 years ago. Where do you think we at right now with that technology? They
It
just
was way
dropped it.
before there, to be
Yeah,
honest. That was just the one they put public.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So my point is, where are we now? You know, 30 some years later with you
Woo! They
know,
cloned Tyrone. That's what
There
I'm
it
talking
is.
about.
Fontaine running the streets selling people drugs.
oh man.
You gotta
Mm-mm-mm.
On
be divergent. Y'all gotta be divergent. You gotta be like the girl. She like, I'm getting ready to go to the Alps. I'm getting ready to climb. I'm studying for this. That those are the ones that's divergent that don't want to be a part of that, society that they're trying to make us into. They're trying to make everybody into clowns out here.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Absolutely.
gotta give a big ups to Yo Yo because
Yeah.
my perspective was that she represented the feminine divine.
Yeah.
Her energy is what caused Tyrone to say, okay, well, we got to do something about this. And
Yeah.
so they did. But then again, there was a fruitlessness of the day after you go to Compton and you see the same scene playing out. So that was a subliminal message to us that it don't matter what you do. We're going to clone you and we're going to do what we do. We're going to continue to experiment on
Until
you
everybody wake up. You see,
until,
everybody gotta wake up. That's the
yeah,
that's the key.
yep, yep.
Can't
So,
fight it until you wake up.
all right. Well, let's agree to do this. Let's agree to do everything that we can to eliminate the zombies on this planet so that everybody can experience the true beauty of life
Mhm.
outside of what Dr. Barisha Day would call the Patrix. Not the
Let,
Matrix, but the Patrix.
let me
Wow.
just say one thing. The work that you're doing, Doc, and a few others, you know, like Yaki and things like that, we're going up against some serious forces, is what you're talking about as well. That's why it's important for us to become healers ourselves so we can spread that to our families and our friends like
Absolutely.
that. Because they're not going to allow a platform like this to be in mainstream like that, and
Right.
people talking like, brother, it's not by chance a lot of our healers are mysteriously leaving us and things like that. So they don't want this information out. So we have to train. So take the time to invest in yourself so
Yeah.
you can help your family. So we can put we can replica us, get a replica of ourselves and go
Exactly.
out and teach and train everybody else so we can do something to counteract some of the things that they're doing.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well,
Can
we
I say
won't
one
be.
last time? One last
Okay.
thing, Vince.
Yes.
On the back of him, Tony, absolutely, I agree with that completely. I want people to be empowered because when we are in our joyful state, we are powerful. Nothing can touch you because it's all about frequency. Your reality comes to you through frequency. So you have to be a vibrational match to whatever you experience. You will not be able to experience anything of the lower realms if you're not on that lower realm. It can't happen. So you got to change the frequency and vibration of yourself and bring your joy and peace back. So that means get your health together because you got to get them parasites out, all them toxins, because they're keeping your vibration low. Once you get all that stuff under control, we flying high, and you will see these types of things on mainstream because we are going to create it. We are creating this reality. It's time for us to wake up and take our power back.
Right on. I don't think I can say anything to add to that. So I'm going to shut my mouth right now and thank everybody for tuning in. This has been a wonderful and a great broadcast. And I think there's a lot for folks to learn. If they take the time to listen and view. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Peace, progress, and prosperity to everyone.
Stay strong, family.
All righty.
Yes.